tenant profile for apartments is a little bit different to suburban areas, and even to apartments that are not based in the CBD. The CBD is quite a micro market, if you like. It's very heavily linked, the rental cycle is very heavily linked to the academic calendar. So there's an awful amount of tertiary institutions, whether you've got AUT, Auckland University, Massey University, you've got Otago University campus in the city, you've got the international schools, the language schools, the business schools, all of those sorts of things. They all operate around the university calendar, and that tends to drive the peaks and troughs in the rental cycle, in the rental market. So your absolute peak time of the year will be the very last week in January through to the first week in March, because the university intake starts at the beginning of March, first week in March. So that's all the new recruits coming into town, settling in. And they're not all about students or undergraduate students. You've got academic staff that are relocating to service that industry from all sorts of places. You've got a lot of people that are coming from overseas that are postgraduate students, people that are PhD researchers, doctorate fellows that are recruited by our universities from overseas universities in particular programs of research and study, that are here for a year or here for 2 years or here for 3 years as part of their program of work, but they're relocating here from overseas. And because you've got that peak happening, the more savvy investors will make sure that their properties, and when they do come up for rental, are available in that peak property peak time when most people are looking. And that drives the other parts of the market, people who are not necessarily associated with the universities or the academic calendars, but that's when most stuff is available, and so other people tend to move in that cycle as well. The second peak is in the middle of the year, first 3 weeks in July, which is the mid-semester break. People coming in for the second part of the university year as well. Your absolute dead spot is starting to pinch about now, and it will be at its lowest depths in the last week of November and through December to the first 2 weeks in January. University's closed, exams are finished, people have packed their bags, they've gone home, and home might be offshore, and if you're trying to find new tenants at that time, it's tough. There's a lot of city-based workers that come and go. So we do have people that are recruited for trades that under the visa work programs, under the skills shortages programs. There's quite a few big IT companies like Datacom and things like that are based in the city that are recruiting from overseas under the skills shortages program. Telecom is another, Spark is another one, that have their big offices and locations in the city. And as Elvira said, people would prefer to be located where they can walk to work, not to have the cost and responsibility of owning a car and finding somewhere to park it in that city location, because that's horrendous, and not having to deal with the commute and the commuting time. So whether or not it has a car park, it's easier to rent out in most cases. Depends on the profile of the building. We've also got people now, what I'm seeing is people coming in for the big construction projects that are happening in the city. So the new railway, the underground railway that's starting at the bottom, that's going to be tunnelling all the way up Albert Street. The demolition for taking the buildings down that need to be taken out of the mix while that construction goes on, and the apartment complexes that are being built that Elvira talked about. There are construction teams, demolition teams, engineers, Australians. I'm seeing Australians for the first time. The economy in Australia is not great, so I'm seeing highly qualified engineers from Australia relocating here and being based for those projects in the city. They're really desirable tenants because they're professional people, they're on really good incomes, they're here for a specific purpose, and they're absolutely great as tenants. There's no difficulty whatsoever. If the engineers say fix, everything goes wrong in the bathroom anyway. so they're great.